All eggs in this recontest basket. 4 minutes and 12 seconds left now. Twisted Minds. We'll see if they want to commit anything here to close it out versus GeeKay, who are coming back with 5.
Okay, an early at Matrix from Sir Majed off at a distance, and here's the grab flux from KSA onto KSA. Calyx with the sound barrier tries to save him. The Blizzard is added on top from Checkmate. Now you got the overclock. This is a big investment from GeeKay.
Wait.
Did Rojo just jump into a Blizzard? That's crazy. That might be a huge mistake, but the sound barrier is invested from Speedy
Wait, they got
to try
trapped,
and
though.
guarantee this fight. How did GeeKay C9 this?
Hello everyone, the Saudi E-League content keeps on coming, and today we're going to look at the grand final, particularly at the mistakes GeeKay made. Now if you watch this final live, probably the game of the tournament, super close competitive mirror on this SIG matchup, which has really dominated the meta for quite a while now, and it was so close. But I really felt there were so many moments on the maps that GeeKay lost where it was just their own fault. It was just a blunder at the worst possible time or a crucial mistake that cost him so much. And I want to show you these fights today, not to flame GeeKay or highlight the mistakes they made because they sucked and they should be lambasted for it, but to highlight how close this series actually was and how this group of outside London and Checkmate, fairly unknown players, really pushed Twisted Minds all the way, and maybe on another day without these mistakes could have pushed them even further to a map 7 or something, and who knows what happens then if they could just avoid these big mistakes in these big moments. Now, if you're interested in not making crucial grand final losing mistakes in your games, I do offer private coaching. There's a link below to my Discord. Drop me a message if you're interested. We can set something up. But for now, let's get on with the clips. We'll go through the maps chronologically, which means we start with Samoa, which was the first map of the series and the first map that GeeKay lost. So slightly different comps here. Both teams running Sim Bastion, and also Twisted Minds actually started with Orisa because normally GeeKay start right on this map, but they didn't do it this time because it didn't work last time against Twisted Minds. So GeeKay sort of win the blind pick battle, at least at the start. But it's tied up 1-1. We get to what's going to be this sort of pivotal last fight on Samoa. And the ult situation isn't too bad. We have a few ults coming up for Twisted Minds, and we maybe only have Bastion ult, but we're really close to Symbol. And Symbol is so powerful, it's way better than all these ults. So if we get to Symbol, we should actually have ult advantage in this fight, in theory. And if we look at how this fight starts, it starts pretty reasonably. Teenager's going to drop the Bastion ult. We're going to use Rock to force KSA's Fortify, so now KSA is going to have low cooldowns for his aggression here. Seems pretty reasonable. And if I pause it about now, we can see a pretty similar situation where both tanks are trying to contain the enemy team backline, and there's going to be an element of who can deal with this best. KSA is going to drop the Terror Surge, which means, well, for all 4 members of GeeKay here, we're really forced. We have to deal with this. And the important thing when something like this happens, when a tank goes particularly aggressive, or particularly if you use an ult on your backline, the real important thing to remember if you have a tank is you need to be aware this is happening and know all your resources are getting pulled backwards, so you have to be quite self-sufficient. You don't want to be too aggressive, you don't want to lose too much health, you don't want to have all your cooldowns forced. Just hold as much space as you can without risking your life. Unfortunately, I think TVNT gets a little bit bloodthirsty. He thinks maybe this Bastion ult is going to connect more with Quartz than it should do, so he's going to commit really deep for this aggression. And in fact, Quartz is actually going to turn the Bastion ult onto him and chunk his HP, which means TVNT is now in massive trouble. Whereas, let's say TVNT in this hypothetical just kept playing maybe around this area, maybe backed up if he needed to. If we look what's happened in the backline here, well actually, not only has GeeKay's sort of back 4 dealt with the Orisa, nearly killed him, even chunked him massively, Speedy's going to get this huge, potentially, map-winning boop. They isolate Yubi, they kill Yubi. KSA is 1 HP on point, but pushback here looks so good. And we're about to have Simwall. And we're going to be able to stop the cap, keep this ticking up. We're going to win this fight, and the touch is going to be so hard for him. Except, because TVNT is so deep, it ends up being a trade. KSA is then able to get pocketed up just in time. He's able to stabilize, they get the flip, and then they go on to win the dogfight from here. And I just looked at this and thought, if TVNT had just played his life and we'd got Simwall and everything went a little bit smoother, it really would have just been a slam dunk of a fight. And then all of a sudden we win map 1 in this grand final, and we really put Twisted Minds on the back foot, both in-game and mentally as well. Then as this Windows drops, Speedy's going to just go in at the wrong time, out of sync. Quartz is going to find the kill on Landon with it as well, and everything just falls apart before they can get the Simwall off properly and use that game-winning ult. Let's move on to Midtown, and unfortunately the blunders actually get bigger here. If we look at this first fight, it's a pretty standard hold from GeeKay overall. We're going to see Twisted Minds wall themselves into this green area. GeeKay are going to match this with quite a lot of aggression as well. They're going to get a lot of pressure onto UB, going to force him back, going to get a nice wall here from Checkmate. UB's going to actually peek back out, catch a rock, and TVNT will get this kill. Checkmate dies as well, so, neither may press ice block, it's 4v4. But position looks really reasonable from GeeKay. They're going to keep pushing in here. And you can see lamps had to be used. KSA and Kellex are now trapped in this room. Doesn't feel great for them. TVNT's low, but they can really cut off the healing, as you can see from this shield here. But instead of focusing on just shielding and killing these guys first, Landon's actually going to swing really aggressively, trying to kill Quartz. Doesn't quite get him. The pocket is good from Majed. They try and commit onto this, but they've now had all their resources pulled this way. And KSA's still alive. And not only is KSA still alive, but as they turn to try and kill KSA now, KSA's actually just going to hit a couple of ricochets through this corridor, perfectly hit Landon. Then all of a sudden, a 4v4 where we have their Sig completely isolated in green, suddenly turns into a situation where their Sigma has actually killed Baptiste, and the fight's going to fall apart from there. And whenever you're playing any team in Overwatch, let alone the heavy tournament favourites in the form of Twisted Mind, you can't afford to let fights where you've basically won them turn into a fight loss. And now, because they end up losing this first fight, they're going to be behind on ults quite a bit as well. So as we see this second point come, they're going to do a pretty good job here, isolating the 3v2 here. Quartz is going to push it really aggressively with them. So they've walled off to stop any of GeeKay supporting this. And Quartz is going to help him overload. We're going to see them just about force for kill. Quartz is going to pop his ultimate to finish it off as well. So even though they get betrayed, they'll be able to get the kills. They'll keep it moving. Then they'll be able to catch TVNT as well. They're going to keep it moving, get the staggers. And now they get one retake here, GeeKay, but unfortunately they're going to make a bit of a mistake here. This one isn't as bad, but because they walk early just before they have a lot of their ults, it actually sets up KSA to get this flux, and all of a sudden it's, we're so close to so many ults. If we just waited a second, maybe we could take more of a big ult fight instead. We don't do that, which means KSA and UB are going to get so much value in the flux. The silver lining here is that they got checkmate through to point early, so if a cart doesn't move, they do get the retake. Super, super important. So I don't know how I feel about essentially having to take a dry fight here, but it sets up a pretty reasonable situation where we've got a 5-ult retake coming on. Doesn't feel too bad at all. And they're going to do pretty well with a 5-ult retake. It's taken them, this is now the third fight of the game before they're actually getting to use any ults, and we're already on the last part of second, but we've got 5 ults we can stabilize here. We're going to see TVNT start it off. Going to catch KSA only with the flux, forces his cooldowns. It's actually a really nice Maywall from UB here. Nearly messes up Checkmate's timing, but he's just able to get enough slow onto KSA. They just about get the freeze on him, and then they're just about able to get the kill with a bit of help from this window. So now, in theory, they've got tank advantage. They lost their Lucio for it, so they don't have beat, but it should still feel okay. Kellex is going to drop his own beat. Yubi's going to try and use his Mayo aggressively here now after Checkmate's ice is forced. But Checkmate very crucially actually gets a really big wall off here. And just about buys enough time. It doesn't save Teenager's life in the end, but it helps everyone get back and save his life. But because everyone is pulled in this direction to save it, Kellex swoops in with the C9 boop, and it ends up being devastating. Because now not only have we used all 5 fights, or 5 ults rather, we've used all 5 ults, we've technically won the fight, but we've also lost the fight really completely. And now all of a sudden, a 5-minute time bank onto third point. It's impossible, really. They do a pretty decent hold in the end, but ultimately, if you give a team like Twisted Minds 5 minutes to cap 1 point, they will eventually have the right ult situation where they can just cap it. And this is just an absolute gut punch for GeeKay here. If they were only able to avoid even one of these two big mistakes on either first or second, their hold looks completely different, and then their attack probably looks a little bit more reasonable overall. Twisted Minds went on to full cap Midtown, and GeeKay was stopped just short of third. But you can imagine if a couple of those big disasters don't happen, GeeKay are able to get much better defense, and then their attack is more than enough to win Midtown. So Twisted Minds went up 2-0 in the series. The next two maps, GeeKay win both of them, which put us here on Route 66. Twisted Minds map pick, and it's GeeKay's defense. They did a spawn camp. Eventually it lost, but it got about a minute off the clock. Not too bad. And now they get this retake. And this retake's normally quite a difficult retake. We're going to see him approach it the way a lot of teams do, where the May Lucio will swing one way, and these guys, the core of the group, will swing out the main side. And now what happens next is absolutely perfect for GeeKay. Oh my god, we've got the opening pick onto the Sojourn. Perfect. We're now going to get a free retake here, win this fight in theory, clean up these kills, and then there's going to be, what, maybe like 140 left on the clock. They're going to have one big ult fight to push it, and it's a really great chance for us to get a pretty robust hold on them and put them in a really difficult position, maybe even full hold them. Going to chase down some of the kills. We're putting them under pressure. We force lamp, and then there's this horrible moment here where we're just not tracking the cooldowns, or we're not ready for it. TVNT is caught too far forward. He's going to get walled off. It's a really good wall by UB. They drop the flux to punish him, and now all of a sudden, we've given them a free retake. When Teenage did all the hard work by picking Quartz here, we've given them a free retake. And one thing I really felt that was true of GeeKay across this Grand Final series compared to the upper bracket game where they also played Twisted Minds is GeeKay really upped the aggression. And for the most part, it did work. We saw them win a lot of clutches, and we saw them perform a lot better overall in the Sig Mirror. But the problem is, when you try and up the aggression, sometimes you can get carried away, and you see stuff like this, and this is what crept in. And this is kind of every coach's nightmare, where you want your team to play more aggressive, but you don't want them to int. And it's really hard to find that balance. And you'll see all the best teams will be able to do high aggression without inting. That's the ideal, but it's a really hard balance to get right. And I think we start to see here a couple of mistakes from GeeKay come from trying to ramp up this aggression. They're going to try and clutch, and they do get one kill, but it means they don't get enough from it. The cart's now C9ing away from them. The retake's really awkward and difficult, and then all of a sudden, what could have been a full hold has turned into this super messy situation. Credit to Twisted Minds to recognize Landon's isolated here, but now all of a sudden, from what could have been a super strong hold on this Route 66 first point, which is one of the toughest holds to break in the game, we've just lost it by inting in their spawn, essentially. And it's such a disappointing way to lose it, and gives a lot of gas to Twisted Minds to get some momentum onto second point as well. From there, Twisted Minds went on to full cap this map as well, 56 seconds in the time bank too, so a really tall task to answer, and it does make you wonder, how different could things have been if we had just not messed up that hold? Could we have stopped him on first, or at least stopped him full capping potentially? But they're on their attack now. They still have a chance. They have this forward hold, which is so difficult to break. Teenage on one angle, everyone else on the high ground. Seems a really difficult situation for Twisted Minds. One that most teams would struggle in. They're going to walk out here. They're going to drop the window now. I know why they window here, because they want to just catch him in this area, make it really difficult for him to walk. But because they do it so early, UB still has wall. KSA still has matrix. So they could really force a lot of these cooldowns just with this good wall and just shooting. But because they commit the window here as well, it gives this really nice option for Twisted Minds just to disengage, just to walk away from it. They try and find more aggression and they can't do it. Okay, so not the greatest start, but we have Mayo and the cart is just here, right? So we can just force a fight round payload, try and avoid their window as best as possible. This should still be a pretty slam dunkable situation. Have to care their flank, but it's fine. We can just take the fight on point. The only important thing is we don't get caught by the window. But what happens next is Magic's going to window back for space. We're going to see slightly different choices here by going different directions between Sojourn and Baptiste. UB Kellex have managed to get in on the flank as well. So we just get pulled in so many different directions. Teenage doesn't even really get out of the way in time, gets caught by it. Now, all of a sudden, what I would really like is we had just dropped. Maybe we can even force UB's ice block and then just look to play this fight on point. Whether we just drop off this side and force these guys, or we just have our BAP Sojourn drop here and we just try and force the fight under here, right? Making these guys come down to us because then their window's going to be pretty rubbish and we can force the fight in. But because we're maybe not super clear on our kite path, we all get quite split. Landon then has to take a bit of a roundabout way to come back. It provides an opportunity for UB to clutch. Then by the time we're actually in a situation where we're getting this Mayult off, we still do manage to get the Mayult on point. But if we look at our HB bars, we're in such a terrible situation. And it's so painful for this to be the situation you're in when you were the team holding. You had all the space, you had all the control. Then the enemy team's able to get something like this out of it. Then it's just too hard to recover from. So even though we get the freeze onto KSA, TBNT's actually the one who dies. We can't convert the kill onto KSA. It's a good lamp, but it's too little too late. And we've missed a really good snowball opportunity here on second. As we come into GeeKay's final attempt on Route 66 second attack, we can see the payload's now moved a little bit further back. And they're going to have to try and do a rotation like this to flip the point. They're going to start with Teenage swinging the opposite side, nice and wide. Try and get this nice pincer onto Twisted Minds, put them in a tricky situation. And they're going to get to do that for the most part. Speedy's going to get a touch on point. Magid is going to be actually quite switched off to this position, which means Landon gets a great opportunity just to drop the window. Downtown Rock from TVNT hits. Twisted Minds have done a good job reacting to Teenage being split, and they're going to trade him as well. But if I pause it now and I say, well, it's 4v4. Twisted Minds have lost their main source of healing. We've got people on the cart. The payload goes here. We've got this position. Let's just C9 cart. Let's just move it this way. We've got Mayult again. Let's just drop Mayult on here, and maybe Teenage can even drop the overclock coming back. You know, we just need to respect, or not even window. They don't have it, right? It's just overclock we need to respect. We can start the payload moving. TVNT is going to drop as well. All starts to look really good. The payload's moving. The payload's moving. Now, Quartz is going to jump onto the high ground. At the same time, UB and KSA are going to pressure point. Okay, great timing to use Mayult if we've got it. Just need to respect this Sojourn ult. Checkmate's going to choose to wall up onto him here. And it's really hard because what's gonna happen, I can show it to you from Quartz's point of view. He's going to hit one shot. At this point now, Checkmate really needs to press Ice Block. Needs to respect that Quartz is pretty good at Sojourn. Doesn't hit it. Quartz gets this kill on the Mayult at this point in time. But you can also imagine a world where either, one, he Ice Blocks this, because then he's forced Quartz down and then he can do the Mayult on point. Seems really good. Or he just ignores this Sojourn, focuses for kills in this area, because UB's down here, KSA's down here. If we look at cooldowns, UB doesn't have wall anymore. KSA doesn't have his shield really that high health. And it's a really great timing to find a Mayult, at least force them off point, and then you can keep C9ing and make this really difficult for them, and just shield and shoot back the Sojourn ult as best as you can. Unfortunately, neither of these things happen. Quartz ends up getting the big clutch, finishes off Speedy as well. Can't ask for more from Quartz in this situation, but it looks so winnable for GeeKay. They just weren't able to find the crucial ult in the crucial situation right at the end, and it ends up being a loss on this map as well. They also went on to play Busan, which GeeKay also lost. Unfortunately, replays don't work on Busan at the moment. It just crashes your game. So we can't look precisely at that one. But of all of them, while it was still a free rounder on Busan, the Downtown that ultimately ended it for GeeKay was probably one of the least competitive rounds out of the whole series. And while we've spent a lot of time focusing on what GeeKay should have done better, could have done better, their mistakes, I really want the purpose of this video to more demonstrate how close this series actually was. And that maybe without some of these big, more crucial mistakes, actually, GeeKay could have really pushed them all the way. I'm not saying GeeKay would have definitely won, even though GeeKay won 2 maps. Those 2 maps were absolute nail biters right down to the wire. So Twisted Minds are not an easy team to beat. But I think a lot of respect should be put on GeeKay's name, especially to the up-and-coming players whose names we maybe haven't heard before, in the form of TVNT, Speedy, Rojo, all put in stellar performances in this grand final to make it such a close game. And we'll all be left wondering what the result could have been without some of these big mistakes at crucial times. Ultimately, though, that's what makes Twisted Minds the current World Cup champions and the current SEL champions. It's their ability to perform and not make these mistakes in the biggest moments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.